Alright, Diablo players, let's talk about it. Season 9 is just around the corner with its campfire PTR chat, as well as having the PTR being available for us to go ahead and check out. So let's go ahead and actually talk a little bit about what kind of to expect, as they have revealed some information about Season 9, and we'll talk about wish lists and speculation in this video. But let's go ahead and get started with specifically their roadmap. So first off, we're going to be talking about specifically the brand new update for the Sins of Horadrim. So that's going to be starting in July, and you can see over here we have the Herodric powers. We don't know exactly what's going to be in here, but I can go ahead and show you guys some speculations here, because this is actually going to be maybe one of the most interesting seasons that we've ever gotten in Diablo for variety in terms of builds. And then on top of that, we have the reputation board, which we've already seen. That's kind of whatever. We expect to get some legendaries. Maybe we can get some, greater affixed items, some materials, and at the very end we get a spark. That's kind of old. We see this every single time. And then, though, we do have something new here, which is the dungeon escalation. And then we also have a pet, but that's a whatever. We have new nightmare dungeon activities, so we're supposed to be able to interact with the nightmare dungeons in a new way. There's also going to be console keyboard and mouse support, so that's going to be a big win for people, especially because I like to play hybrid, and now that console players will have access to keyboard and mouse, that's going to be awesome. And then they say and more, so obviously there's going to be things later down the line. Now, we're going to be talking about some speculations of what this brand new dungeon escalation could be, and also the new nightmare dungeon activities. We can see a mock-up picture over here. And how it looks like is you see that there is a nightmare dungeon, and then there are dungeon affixes, which we've technically had before in the game. In the earlier stages of Diablo in like Season 0, we had these modifiers on specifically the key to go into the dungeon, right? We would have like the affixes of, like, if you guys remember, there was like a little bubble that you'd have to go in after, you'd hear like a ding sound, and if you didn't get in the bubble, it would one-shot you. People didn't like that, so they actually removed a lot of those affixes that people didn't like. There was ones that would actually give you negative armor applied to your character, and a lot of other debuffs. They have now removed those in the game, so maybe these will return in another way. But you can see where it says this nightmare dungeon, there is amulets. As the amulet drop chances increase, we can see where it says like floor 1, it's adding volcanic, so this is another modifier that's going to make it so there's going to be flames that shoot out, so it's making the area a lot harder. And as you go up in escalation here, we have floor 1 adds volcanic, floor 2 makes it so the monsters have a barrier. Now, we do have some of these mods that already exist in the game, but it's again making the game harder and harder, and hopefully, fingers crossed, this also means better loot, because as we go higher in the pit, we don't really get better rewards other than being able to level up our glyphs. So I think that would be a great change up from the game, because to try to get 4 greater affixes or even 3 in the game is quite difficult, and I think that it'd be cool to see a different way that when we are actually doing harder content, we actually get rewarded for it. So this is kind of just, again, these are all mock-ups over here, but specifically just adding more random negative dungeon affixes, and then it means that it is possible to have all of these all at the same time. So it's going to be a lot more challenging, because I would say Diablo has been in the situation where it's kind of a number check, right? Where it's like, okay, does your DPS reach the amount that you need to deal to actually clear the monsters fast enough? If not, you kind of lose out on the pit. But if there's all these mods to make the area a little bit more difficult, we may actually need to try to get more survivability, as right now in the game, it's honestly go as much DPS as you possibly can in most scenarios, right? And then looking at what other people are talking about for the expectations here, I want to say, I was checking out what other people kind of expect to see with these escalations, and I'll be honest, the expectations are kind of low here, where you can see 9 color schemes and Raven Corner in the boss room over here. But I still think that, I want to see some cool ideas here, but I think people don't really have high expectations, which is kind of a good thing in the game, because whatever they deliver may actually surprise us. And I'm really hopeful for specifically PvP, which is something I'll talk about later down the line. But other people were talking about layered progression, again, ramping up to get better rewards. This is also an interesting idea over here, that they have dynamic threat leveling up. So basically, as you stay longer, it's going to get harder and harder. So the goal would be to, I guess, clear it out as fast as possible. Otherwise, it may get too difficult and you can't clear it. So there's going to be some interesting things that may come out of seeing some of what people actually state here. This is over on Icy Veins, talking about how each floor is adding more modifiers, once again, that we were talking about. So a lot of places are talking about also a multi-floor progression where you get to enter the next area. There's also a mention of targeted loot, which I would say the Undercity kind of already does, but you guys can see over here where it says like this one drops amulets. And I think that that can be kind of good because some players, they only need an upgrade for a very specific thing. A lot of times, I'll be honest, it's to try to get that greater affix on a Mythic. And to be honest, I think the best way to make it so we can actually like get the stuff that we want in the game is maybe some forms of crafting, which is something that I am very hopeful for with this update. There's the seasonal theme of the Sins of the Horadrim, which, you know, we have these Herodric powers, which always make me think, well, what about the Herodric Cube, right, from Diablo 2? And this was something introduced to add basically crafting and so many more quality of lives into the game, letting you upgrade your runes and stuff. And it'd be really cool to get some sort of real crafting, right? In Diablo 3, we basically had the same thing that's in Diablo 4 for like crafting, because what you do is you throw in the item and you reroll one thing. Now, adding the aspects was a really cool feature that Diablo 4 added. That way you always can get your legendary power. But that actually may change up a little bit in Season 9, and we'll talk about this because they actually mentioned a skill tree change, which I'm very excited about. But I was also thinking about what else they could do with specifically the like Horadrim seasonal theme. There's also people talking about the Kanai's Cube. If they literally copy and pasted this, I would not complain at all. And the reason why is if you've ever played the Druid class, you know that you specifically need like Tempest's Roar or Vasili's Prayer to like count as, you know, other skills or Beware Bear or basically get some sort of bonus. Druid is the class that has the most problems with getting that one item in specifically the helmet slot. Even with the brand new helmet for the season, the unique, no one plays it because you need to run Tempest's Roar. You need to play that bonus Vasili's Prayer for your build, right? So if Druid got this, I think Druid would be the biggest winner. If you haven't played Diablo 3, basically think of it this way. You get to equip an additional unique in any slot without even equipping it. You get to select one weapon, one armor piece, and one jewelry. So being able to, again, get that unique power. Maybe you need the blue rose ring on the Sorceress for a really cool build. And I think this could shift up the meta quite a bit, as it allows for combinations that normally would be impossible because your weapon slot is filled with that one special item. So this is actually one of the coolest seasonal themes, potentially, just for people that like to theory craft, which I really like to theory craft, come up with crazy ideas. Like, if you guys ever played Diablo 3, Chain Lightning was never a real build. However, with some, you know, workarounds, you can be a little bit more creative, and you can make a Chain Lightning build in Diablo 3 actually dominate. Well, we're talking about like T16 dominate, not like GR150. But again, most people just want to be able to level up their gems, and they're happy with that, right? But going on to something else that I wanted to talk about that could be very big over here is they want to actually change up the skill tree. This was mentioned just 2 weeks ago. They mentioned that the skill tree is something that we're definitely looking at. So hopefully by the time that the brand new announcement for the Campfire chat is here, because they just recently talked about it already, they're going to have something cooking up. Now I was thinking about like, well, what could they actually be cooking up? So, and I mentioned before, like aspects could be changing in the game. So as you guys know, let's be real, Diablo's skill tree, people have mentioned it's a skill twig, where is like, you always have to get this one node for whatever skill that you're running, right? And then you have the option between like one or the other. You have two options. This one doesn't matter because you have to get it to progress anyways, right? So what I think is going to happen is they will actually either delete this node over here, and then the Twisting Blades will either be able to socket in other aspects in this area, or how they're going to do it is you just select whatever you want. If you guys have played any sort of builds, usually you have to run the aspect, otherwise you lose out on a big multiplier. But I think the newer thing is going to allow us to choose the aspects that we want, hopefully making it so all of the variants can be viable, because there's a build of Twisting Blades where you wouldn't really need to make it have it orbit around you. But if you're playing Twisting Blades, you have to play it because the multiplier is simply too good. And some of these interactions are not favorable for some players. Like, you just don't want that, like the way that the aspect plays, but you again are forced to play with it. So it's going to be interesting to see that maybe they only let us select one aspect, but the number is just scaled so high in a direction, or maybe it doesn't even have multiplier. That we have like an X multiplier. It just changes the way the skill behaves. Therefore, then you could just put other multipliers normally where you would in the aspect department, and now you just select the way that you want to play. And I think this would be a really cool addition to the game. Again, they just mentioned the skill tree change. I mean, if they come up with something crazy and they're like, hey guys, instead of this, we are just going to have like a completely brand new skill tree system where it's kind of like Path of Exile or Undecember, where you get to like modify the skill with the other gems. That's cool too. The more complexity you add, the more I get excited about it. But I want to say that they need to be careful because Diablo 4 is definitely oriented around a casual experience. And if they make the game too complex, that could deter the casual audience, especially with the feedback that I've seen with a lot of people saying Torment 4 is just simply too hard compared to what it used to be in Season 7, which is totally true. I think the idea was to try to check out retention rate to see how long people will stay in if they kind of nerf everything. And I'm going to be honest, it takes a long time to hit Paragon 300 in Season 8. Season 7, it was a lot more achievable because the whole game was way faster because you had the powers, right? But another thing I want to talk about is what I personally think that the dungeon escalations will actually be. So if you guys remember the root holds where we would go in and we would make the area harder, but I'll be honest, I didn't really feel that it made it more difficult, where we would get this extra mod, but we would get some sort of benefit. It's almost like the Infernal Hordes, you know how we get to select that? I don't know if this is going to be similar to the escalations, but I'm just giving you guys ideas that you can maybe think about for what to expect. But I kind of almost expect this sort of thing, maybe some recycled content where we get that giant lightning thing that shoots down and one-shots you. I'll be honest, I don't really like that mechanic because you would play and your character sometimes would be so fast, and then this little bubble would have to catch up to you, the little crystal, right? It just took too long. So I think that they need to watch out for what other recycled forms of content that they add into the game. But I also want to talk about just needing World Tier 5 in general, something that the community's been talking about for a long time, and I almost feel like we need it because getting blue items, because if you open up any of the caches from the brand new season, at the very end when you've done the entire season journey where you already have a Mythic Spark to drop, it's weird that the rewards can still drop blue items. And I want to say that moving into World Tier 5 should just delete all of the non-greater affix, delete all of the yellow items, all of the blue items, and the only thing that drops is minimum GA1. Maybe we have a higher chance for GA2s and 3s in this difficulty, but I think that we are at the point where we need another world tier. And this was actually something that was leaked a while ago with the data mine. There was actually a showcase of these other upgraded gems. This is real. This is not speculation or theory. This was in the game. It was data mined, right? There was also this area where back in the day to go to the next tier, you'd have to have these caps. There was one already implemented into the game. So this is something that maybe they decided we're going to add later. My expectations are more than likely the expansion for World Tier 5, but I would not be disappointed if they're like, Season 9, guys, we're adding World Tier 5. Cool, I would say that's awesome. But now I want to go over my wish list here, now that we've gone over kind of what to expect and more realistic things that may come out for Season 9. But here's my wish list personally, and I'm curious to know what you guys think about my wish list, or you guys can let me know what your wish list things are. So the first thing that I want for basically infinite replayability, for me to always come back into this game, I really, really want some PvP. Diablo 2 had some awesome, crazy PvP ideas and theory crafting that went on, and there's still people that do participate in a lot of PvP. Let's be honest, the Paladin is pretty dang strong. However, there are a lot of newer things that people come up with, whether it's the assassin variants, but basically what I want is some sort of support for PvP. I would love to see some ranks. Imagine going into clan battles, 2v2s, and maybe there's something that I've always wanted, which is the best clan gets to design the new mythic for the next season, or some sort of clan activities. I really like the idea of clan battles. Imagine going in 10v10, your clan goes in and you gotta battle another clan to fight for some sort of resource or fight for some sort of something in the game. I think that would be really cool because this is an area where I feel like they can have almost infinite replayability, because this is an area where I feel like Diablo 4 suffers a lot more in the endgame than the previous games, specifically Diablo 2 with PvP. I mean, it's just so dang cool. I also briefly wanted to mention, I didn't put it in my notes because I don't expect this to happen, but I really want Blizzard to make an official trade thing inside the game, because I think that this could also help out with longevity in the game, because I hate trading on third-party websites because people just simply don't respond. That's the biggest thing, or they just want absurd amounts of gold that realistically the player's never going to achieve. But if you add some sort of in-game trade, like an auction house where you can be I want this item, I am looking for this item, and people could just trade directly, so you don't even have to trade for gold, get the gold, then whisper the person that never responds. I think it'd be really cool just to have some sort of really good integrated trade system where you can say, I have this item, I either want gold or I want a Fist of Fate that minimum has this, and I'll take it, and you could just trade items and it could just feel so much smoother in the game. Anyways, also, more in-game activities, and I'm talking about new forms of content, not rehashed kind of content. I'll be honest, the incursions for Season 8, they were something where I felt I played it for 10 minutes and I was okay, I've already experienced it. It's you go here, you kill monsters, and you get a boss and you kill it. I want something that is gonna make my brain think for a little bit. I think that's one thing that Diablo 4 really lacks compared to other action RPGs, where if you look at Last Epoch, where you get to like modify this boss to make him like stronger and stronger, but you add more mods to the item, or in Path of Exile, you have all these other things that you can kind of build your character to do that form of content. And I think that is an area where Diablo 4 could definitely improve upon. Again, I'm looking for actually brand new things, no older things that have been introduced in the past to like bring back, not like, you know, like to say they bring back like the Malignant Tunnels. I want new endgame content, although I want to say Diablo 4 is in a state where like we shouldn't even be removing any content. Like we should just keep in the incursions, keep in everything, not necessarily the powers, because if we kept all the powers from Season 0, like until now, we would be hitting for so many damage numbers that the screen couldn't even hold the numbers. So I think it's better in terms of powers, maybe not to keep all the powers, even though I like this season's powers, but I'm talking about like the in-game like activities, if that makes sense. I also just want in general more clan activities, because I still don't see what is the point of a clan in the game when we don't have things. We have so many different activities for Diablo Immortal. You could just copy and paste and move those over. I think that it'd be cool to have like maybe a clan stash tab or something like that. At least that way you can have some sort of sense of community, right? You can make like a clan all about rogues and they can do all gear share. I mean, that could be a real quick thing. You just get one clan stash, but I get it, there's all these complications. There could be duping, you know, exploits with a special clan stash, but I think that there needs to be more incorporation to play with each other in some sort of a group setting to add, again, longevity. This is a topic for almost another video on its own. I actually saw this on my feed today. Shoutouts to Yugioh, he made a video talking about overpower, but this is something that I've been talking about for other classes in general. Now, they have heavily nerfed overpower, like one of the things that you could snapshot, the infinite overpower. They have nerfed a lot of it, which is a good thing to be fair, because snapshotting is very difficult, and Diablo 4 again is a casual game, so when you add snapshotting, sometimes people are like, oh, I hate this mechanic. I think that they should just delete overpower in the game, and the reason why is it makes it so hard to balance the classes, because there's a lot of classes that literally cannot reach this overpower. Overpower is basically a crit of a crit, and it's just like, it's supposed to add way more damage, and it's supposed to be something that's kind of special, but the reality is that people try to 100% overpower in their entire build, and when these things are achieved relatively easy for some classes, while other classes you lose out to it. That's the difference between hitting for, you know, one build hits for like billions and one build maybe hit trillions and one's stuck in the millions, and this is kind of why it's overpower being a thing that some people can't achieve. Next up, I would love for them to announce some sort of rework on masterworking, specifically checkpoints would be great. Again, this is a suggestion I've seen time and time again, where it's like you have these checkpoints where like instead of resetting from, you know, 12 out of 12 you go to 0, instead of that you go back to 8 out of 12 and you can just keep on going, but you have these checkpoints, so it's a little bit more, again, casual and or beginner friendly. And then also I think with temper, this is kind of something that I get it, they want us to have items that we can basically brick, because if you don't have items that brick you can infinitely just keep on going, but I think that a rework on the temper would be kind of okay, and they could just try it out for a season. If it doesn't work, they can go back to their other methods, but I think that what would be nice, instead of it being random and like, you know, you have a 1 in 4, sometimes 1 in 5 chance to get the thing that you want, I think it'd be cool just to select the one that you want and it guarantees that one, but the range you can either roll like a low roll or high roll, and you can keep on rolling, or maybe you could re-roll, but you could still select the last roll just in case, you know, you want to go risk it a little bit more. There's a little bit less risk involved, right? But I think that could be something they can check out as well, like the temper masterworking. And then also I wanted some new crafting options in the game, which is something that I was talking about, where I think it'd be cool to have some sort of scroll that moves the greater affix on another like slot in the game. I think that would be really massive for the game, because sometimes you get an item and it's like a greater affix life per 5 seconds, and you're like, who wants this stat, right? So instead of it being like just a garbage item because that's the greater affix, you could then randomly move the greater affix, kind of like, I don't know how to put this, like maybe like a randomizer in terms of like what it, I almost want to say like kind of like a divine orb in like Path of Exile, but it just randomizes one of the GAs to move somewhere else. That way, some of the items that maybe have like a stat that you really want, it would still be good because then it would have the stat that you want, but then the GA is on something worse, so then you randomize it and you can kind of re-roll the item, so to speak. That'd be kind of cool, or like just kind of a variance of like a Chaos Orb where it still keeps a GA, but it randomly can reroll to it's a brand new set of stats too. Basically, just making it so GAs always feel good, because when a GA drops and then you get like the life per 5 seconds, you're like, oh, worthless, right? For the most builds. So again, I think that more crafting options would be good. Again, the Herodric Cube would be a great addition to the game to like allow us to have like different crafting options. Anyways, I think this is, I kind of put this one towards the bottom because like every single season we ask for the leaderboards in game. It's like, I think Blizzard has the ability to do this. We already see it on specifically the Gauntlet, which no one really utilized to the extent of like, I would upload a video and be like, guys, this is the rank 1 clear, because people would just be like, well, that's not the pit clear, so it doesn't count. And people just use third-party websites at the end of the day. I kind of put this one towards the bottom because, again, I want to say they have the ability to do it. They don't want to do it because they don't want players to look at other players and be like, well, his build does this. Oh, he's got like 4 GA items. I don't want to play anymore. It feels unachievable. I think there is probably some sort of deep learning algorithm that they maybe have for like, I don't know, player retention rate that like this would actually negatively impact the game. That's my thoughts. I know. For me personally, if I was to, you know, be in charge, I'd say, yeah, if people want the leaderboards, add the leaderboards, add the loot filters. But also, as far as loot filter goes, if we added loot filters, this would actually kind of break the game. And I actually just realized this when someone else, I think it was some thread on Reddit. I saw it somewhere else though. But people were talking about like how a loot filter cannot really be added to the game because then you would run out of resources because you wouldn't be picking up the things to salvage. And I'm like, oh, that's a pretty good idea, because I didn't think about that because I was always thinking about like, you know, I just want to pick up garbage. You know, once I'm at the you know Paragon 300, all I want to see is like the triple GAs. Like if it's like maybe even double GA, I'll look at it. But like I don't want to look at any like non-greater affix gear. But again, the loot filter would kind of destroy that. So I totally get that actually. Or you could just make the pet, which is another cool suggestion. I believe this is by another Diablo partner, Mippy, where it's like the pet would automatically salvage anything that you put. So it would just walk up and salvage. You don't even have to like look at the item. It just does it for you. That's another great option. But also I mentioned like World Tier 5, but that was something that was already data mined. I expect to see this in the expansion, if not relatively soon. But that's what I kind of expect to see. Hopefully, we will get specifically the PvP. I want this more than anything for my personal wish list, but let me know what's the number 1 thing that you guys want to see in the game. Number 1 for me is PvP. Number 2 is more endgame. I think most people want more endgame content, but you guys can let me know what your thoughts are. Anyways, if there's anything that I missed out on, whether it was like some sort of interview, I know that there was one via Riker, but there wasn't really anything to take out of it other than like, we're going to be doing nightmare dungeons differently. I don't know what that means. I just hope it's not a rehash of just like, again, adding these little like mods that we've seen before. So hopefully it's going to be some brand new forms of content that it's going to make us think about how we want to enter this, and of course, much better rewards in the future. Anyways, I'll catch you guys on the next video, hopefully with that live stream to give us some really big announcements for Season 9. But till then, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out, gamers.